open mind, Dr. Jaishankar, statecraft and the global order, in some sense, both in a virtuous, sometimes vicious relationship. Um, while we can certainly see the texture change in the transatlantic relationship, and therefore the undergirding of the global order as we know it, the transatlantic relationship being the base, we have not necessarily seen the emergence of any new arrangements that can undergird the future. I'm asking you to just wear a thinking hat. What are some of the relationships for the future that could actually support growth, stability, prosperity, and peace in the decades ahead?
Um, you know, one can say every change is unique, but this one really is because we are actually having global change without massive conflict. And because that is happening, uh, it's not, there's no guillotining, there's no sudden moment when there was a shift. So what is happening is there are strong elements of continuity. There are dramatic elements of change, depending on who is highlighting which part of it and how we are impacted by it. We tend to pick that the balance to our comfort. You asked me about the title of this conference. I can understand why in Munich, somebody would look at it so bleakly. But I would also temper it with the fact that the reality is perhaps not so sharp. So here's my thought. Number one, I feel we are headed for a long twilight zone, and a long twilight zone where some parts of the order will remain, some parts will not, some organization will remain, some won't. It'll be messy. All of us, we like to intellectually organize ourselves. We want neat answers saying, okay, those 4 things will happen, that's the way it'll be. I'm afraid we're not going to get that, because more than anything else, there is actually, so many dimensions are changing at the same time and they're fading into each other. And, the natural inclination for many years in an order is to stabilize. I don't think that's the natural inclination anymore in every quarter. Sometimes there may be an actual feeding of the volatility, saying, okay, let the world be more volatile and I will come out better or stronger out of that. The second, and I'm picking up on something which Megan said, there's, particularly in our part of the world, there's always been that concern about what is called the G2. What happens when US and China get together, and it has a history which goes back, I think, to Obama's time and so on. But I would point in a way to a G-2. A G-2 where people say, look, G1 and G2 are both big difficult players. They may compete, that is difficult. They may cohabit, that's also difficult. They may be opaque, that's also difficult. So let's all develop, our own thing, and find. Now you could say in a way this kind of ties in with where Carney was going. Carney, of course, said middle powers. It may not be limited to middle powers. There may be
bigger ones also.
Which brings me to the last point. To me, that is what the de-risking is going to be about. Look, I don't think anybody is saying, oh, I'm going to move away from the US or disinvest from the US. In fact, the experience of the last year, everybody says, let me find more ways and safer ways and redundant ways of engaging the US, so that if those 3 things don't work, the other 2 things will work. So I see, in a way, this is half a joke, that in Nagoya they invented just in time, and Indians invented just in case. So we run high inventories, in case that happens, you do this, in case that happens, you do this. So I think the world is moving to a sort of a just in case. It'll be costlier because we will build more things for the rainy day, for the stormy weather, but a kind of a long transition, a G-2, much more de-risked focus. That's the kind of scenario I can see emerging.